Hey, and welcome to another video. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sam and I talk about death and other weird shit. I like to tell stories, I like to do all that fun stuff. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And I think that you guys are going to enjoy this video today because it's a pretty interesting story. I heard about this a while ago, but I honestly didn't know that it was like a true story. I just thought it was a story. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the drag queen who had a dead body in her closet for 20 years. So this is the story of Dorian Corey.
Ladies and gentlemen, her career has skyrocketed overnight as the star of Paris is Burning. She brought a tear to my eye with the words of wisdom that she spread in that picture, which I hope everyone got a chance to see. Won't you please welcome the legendary star of Paris is Burning, Dorian Corey.
So Dorian Corey was a trans woman, a drag performer, and a fashion designer. In the 1960s, she toured as a snake dancer in the Pearl Box Revue, which was a cabaret drag act with lots of music and theatrics. She was also the founder of the voguing House of Corey. She was the grand dame of the New York ball scene, often delivering legendary one-liners and lessons on shade, a phrase that is still used to this day. So whenever you hear about someone throwing some shade or being shady, that's where that came from.
I don't tell you you're ugly, but I don't have to tell you because you know you're ugly. And that's shade.
She was featured in the documentary called Paris is Burning. She had over 50 grand prizes from the voguing balls that she attended.
It's like a physical high. It's an addictive high, like all highs in the long run turn out to be. But it's a high that won't hurt you. If everybody went to balls and did less drugs, it'd be a fun world, wouldn't it?
She also ran and designed a clothing label called Corey Design. And at one point, her act involved wearing a 30 by 40 foot feather cape. Once she had shed her costume down to a sequenced bodysuit, two of her little helpers raised the cape up on poles to produce a feathered tent that covered half the audience. She was very creative, and everyone loved her act and costumes, which were always totally unique. She was a very important person in the drag community in New York City at that time, which was like between the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s. So Dorian lived a very full, busy life. She was a very important person in the scene at the time. A lot of people loved her. Unfortunately, at the age of 56, on August 29th, 1993, Dorian died from AIDS-related health complications at a Manhattan hospital in New York. So after her death, a close friend and fellow drag queen named Lois Taylor was going through her clothes and costumes as she was told by Dorian before she died that she was allowed to take what she wanted and to get rid of the rest. So when Lois was going through Dorian's closet, she came across a green plaid garment bag that was kind of slouched in the corner on the floor of the closet. She went to look inside, but shortly realized that it was so heavy she couldn't move it, and it had no zipper. So she had to cut it open with a pair of scissors, and that's when the smell hit her. So inside this green plaid garment bag was the half mummified, half decomposed body of Robert Worley, aka Robert Wells, who was killed by a visible gunshot wound to the head. Also inside the bag were vintage beer can tabs, which suggested he had been in there for a long, long time. Investigators eventually came to realize Robert had been dead and in that garment bag in her closet for 20 years. The last time anyone saw him was in 1968. After news started to spread, it was presumed that Robert could have been an abusive ex-boyfriend to Dorian, with people who knew him confirming that he was a pretty toxic person. So did she have to defend herself? Also, Dorian didn't live in a great part of the city. Burglaries, rape, and murders were pretty common in that area at the time. So another theory is that Robert broke into Dorian's apartment and tried to rob her, so she shot him. Again, in self-defense, but no one knows for sure. So Lois Taylor had told a reporter that Dorian once had written a short story about a transgendered woman who killed her lover in a rage after he pressured her to have a sex change. But without any kind of first-hand testimony from either Dorian or Robert, it seems the mystery of how he died and how he ended up in her closet will remain a mystery. So all anyone knew for sure was that Dorian was living with a half-decomposed body in her closet for 20 years. The body was wrapped in cloth and plastic bags, so the smell didn't really get too bad, and no one had any idea, and she never mentioned it to anybody, obviously. So, yeah, she was just chilling for 20 years with a decomposing body in her closet. So the first thing you're probably wondering is, how could someone have a decomposing body in their house and no one noticed at all? Well, I mean, she kind of did a good job at hiding the body, and obviously no one was really looking for this guy, so it just worked out. And someone named Richard Mailman, who wrote a play called Dorian's Closet, he told Atlas Obscura that, quote, "I think that disposing of the body would have been too conspicuous in congested Manhattan, so Dorian covered it in baking soda and wrapped it tightly to neutralize the inevitable odor." He also said, "I don't think she needs to have a criminal mind. She didn't plan the murder, and when it happened, she had to think fast. In the mind of someone who commits a crime of passion, that kind of makes sense." And it does. Whatever happened, it's becoming clear that Dorian wouldn't have just murdered someone in cold blood. So something must have pushed her to do something so drastic. Even if it was in self-defense, being a transgendered woman of color in New York City at the time, she obviously knew that this wouldn't end well for her, so she just kept it a secret. I mean, who can blame her, right? Times were different. So once they found Robert's body, they obviously took him out of there and gave him a proper burial or a cremation, I'm not sure which. But after Dorian's death, her cremated remains were sent back to her hometown of Buffalo from Manhattan, but they were never claimed, and they were eventually disposed of. So they just kind of threw her away. But an image of Dorian is sometimes found in voguing events where her legacy and style are memorialized. So in the end, even if Dorian did murder this man, at least his body was found, and if he has any family, at least they got closure. And, you know, I'm sure that deep down Dorian was happy that they found him too. I'm sure that this literal skeleton in her closet was probably eating away at her, you know, throughout the years. I'm sure she maybe wanted to tell somebody, but like I said, times were different back then and she just couldn't. So, I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will leave some links below if you'd like to do some more research about it. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great night. See you next time.
Don't just stand there. Let's get to it. Strike a pose. There's nothing to it. Vogue. That's it, honey.